Hey there, and welcome to day 13 of our May Art Challenge. This was my practice today. Yep, that was my fancy practice. We are going to paint a peaceful watercolor canoe scene by the lake, and I'm starting with a very loose sketch here. Don't be afraid if you're not good at drawing, because I'm not either. But you can see I just kind of did a little smiley, and then I did another smiley, a little bit longer, and I'm just connecting them with a line, a diagonal line, coming down with just a straight line, and then I'm doing the bottom of the canoe. And this is where it gets a little weird because I didn't look at a picture. I should have probably brought that down a little more at a slant, but it's okay. I'm thinking this was built by somebody's grandpa and he didn't have the right dimensions, but it was made with love, and so everybody's happy. All right, now I am just drawing in the seats, and I don't know much about canoes. I literally did not look at pictures of canoes. This is from memory, and it's been years and years and years and years and years since I've seen a canoe in person. And so I just drew three seats in there and just kind of tweaking the lines of my canoe a little bit. I already had to redo this a couple times because I wasn't happy with it. And this one I was like, it's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's all good. And I've decided, unlike our tent scene, I'm not going to put the sky in there. I'm just going to do grass and water. So I'm just drawing a line on the diagonal. I made mine kind of straight. You can do yours more wavy or wobbly, whatever you'd like. But this is just what I went for. If you weren't with us on day 12, this is what we painted. So I'm going to use similar colors to what we used here. I'm going to use what's in my palette and just darken them up a little bit for this because I'm not putting the sky in there. So I'm going to do a little bit different ratio, I guess, of the colors for the water. And I will show you specifically the colors, but basically for my grass here, I'm doing black and yellow. And I am first of all putting in just a layer of water to start off with. It's just going to be a glistening layer. We're not going to have puddles of water. It's just going to help me feel safer when I lay my color in there because you can see I'm going around the boat because watercolor paint follows where the water is. And so generally speaking, I'm not going to have to be super duper careful around the boat, which is obviously going to be a different color than the grass, because the green is going to stay basically in that where the water is. So you can see I'm not being super careful. I am going to be careful because obviously if you lay your brush in the boat, it's going to get paint in it, but just filling that in here. This is really perfect for a beginner. Um, it may look intimidating. I feel like if there's any more than one element, at least for me, in my super duper beginning phases, I kind of still think of myself as a beginner, honestly. But in the super duper beginning phases, if there was more than one element, it was intimidating to me. I'm like, I can't do a landscape. I can't do trees. I can't do a house, all the things. But if you just go step by step, pause when you need to, slow me down if you need to, it is all going to be good. And like I said before, this little canoe scene is going to just be a nice little complement to our day 12 tent scene. And it's also just a really good way to use up your leftover paint in your palette. I am not one who cleans my palette out after every painting. I like to try to reuse the colors because it can be expensive. Speaking of colors, for the grass, I'm using coal black and cadmium yellow medium from my Paul Rubens set. For the water, I'm doing a mixture of Prussian blue and coal black. And you can just play with the ratios. Those are the same color combinations I used for the tent scene, but I'm just, like I said, making them a little bit darker for this scene. So you can just play with the different ratios. I'm starting out lighter on here because you can always go darker with watercolors. You don't want to start with your darkest color unless you just know, I want this bold and dark and all the things, because when it's lighter, you can always add color. It's not as easy to take color away. There are ways to do it, but just easier to add color than it is to remove it. Now, I want to apologize because this video is a day late. I'm supposed to be painting on weekdays during this May Art Challenge, but life happens, right? Between work and other responsibilities, I actually totally forgot after working 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. yesterday. But I'm so happy I could squeeze in some art time today. And if you're juggling a lot too, just know you're not alone and you can squeeze it in. It's all good. I think it's stressful for some people to kind of paint quickly. I love painting quickly personally. And it's just fun for me. I don't know, it feels exciting and it doesn't stress me out. I just think, "Ooh, let me see how fast I can actually get a painting done." There are days where I'm like, "Well, that one's not gonna work," and so I have to make that painting into a scrap piece of paper or what if I feel like I can't save it. I do always try to save it though. What am I saving it for? I don't really know because I'm not selling my art at this point in my life, but I'm truly having fun just practicing and just seeing what I can do. You can see here, I'm just dabbing in darker bits of the blue just to add a little variation. And obviously, like watercolors do, they dried really lightly. And so I'm actually adding some more of this green on here. I'm not going to make you watch me do it because I do 2 more coats of the green. And it doesn't have to be even, just kind of get it in there and get the value of the color that you would like. See, it's not even at all. Before I go on about that, here I'm using sea blue and tree green for my boat color. And it kind of is, I think it's just a beautiful color that results from that. But yeah, you can see how the grass is, there's kind of like a little cauliflower thing over there. Not my favorite, but we can work with it. You know what I mean? That's the part of like, don't think that you just have to throw that out because it looks kind of goofy right now. Because if you know me even a little bit, you know that I'm going to be coming in with some pen detail later. That is just going to be fine. It's going to make everything a-okay. Now back to painting quickly or slowly, whatever your desire is. If you are stressed out by painting quickly and you feel like, no, I need to take my time, please just go at your own pace. You can pause me, you can rewind me, you can slow me down, or you can speed me up if I'm going too slow for you. Whatever works best for you. This is meant to be a fun beginner watercolor tutorial, and I just hope it inspires you to pick up your brush today. Okay, I'm really babbling on this video and not really talking about what I'm doing. So you can see I painted the front of the boat. I kept it a very light because you can always go in, like I said, and add it darker later. And then I'm just going in between the seats of the canoe because I want to do the seats a totally different color. But yeah, I have so many videos on here that are under 5 minutes, definitely under 10 minutes, and this one I'm keeping it under 15. So even if you can just pick up a brush for one of those short amounts of time, I think you'll enjoy it. All right, I let that completely dry. And by the way, I've let everything completely dry in between coats up to this point, except for that first wet layer that I did a wet on wet technique for my first layer of grass. Anyway, I'm speeding you up through this because I'm literally just coloring in that side of the canoe again. Nothing different, just another layer. And then I want to do a little bit of shading on the inside of the canoe because I'm kind of picturing my light source coming from the water and on the diagonal. And so the side closest to us is going to be darker, and then there's going to be a little shading right there on the inside of the canoe. Just kind of use your imagination. If yours looks different than mine, that is great. We're all learning, and your version has its own charm, and that's just one of the beauties of watercolor. It never turns out exactly the same twice, even if the same person is doing it. So yeah, just kind of tweaking the shading, shadows inside of the canoe there, and we're going to let that completely dry and then come in and paint our seats. I'm using burnt sienna for our seats today because I just thought that would be a nice contrast of colors. And I'm not going to be super duper careful with coloring in every little bit of white or, being super duper careful by the blue. Obviously, I'm being careful because I want them to be recognizable as the seats of the canoe. But again, if you know me, you know I'm coming in with some pen detail at the end, almost always. Oh, by the way, I did not mention this yet, but I'm using a size 6 round brush for this entire painting, just in case you're wondering there. But obviously, feel free to use whatever you've got, and feel free to use a smaller brush for areas like this if that's more comfortable for you, whatever you'd like. And thank you again for everybody who is painting along with me and sharing what you're painting. I am so behind on responding to comments, and uh, I'm sure you're not losing sleep over that, but I just wanted you to know I so appreciate it. I am coming in here with my Sharpie pen. You can use anything at this point because we're not adding any more water. So if you don't have fancy waterproof pens, you really don't have to worry about it. I love my Sharpie pens. I love my Sharpie gel pens. I love, of course, my microns. But use what you've got here, or don't add any detail at all. But do you see how it's just defining the boat there? And I just love adding pens at the end. Again, you know that if you've watched any of my videos. I may sound like a broken record. I love using the line and wash technique just because for me it takes the pressure off of making everything perfect with the paint, and you can just kind of suggest shapes and details with the pen after the fact, and it just feels like a really forgiving process. And you can even reshape things, and just be as scribbly as you want. I'm not being extra scribbly, I'm being loose, but you know some of my paintings I've been very loose and scribbly. For this inner portion of the canoe, I'm very lightly doing some shading with the pen there. But yeah, if you're new to line and wash, or watercolor and ink, as some call it, just remember that your lines don't have to be exact. Wobbly, sketchy lines, in my opinion, actually give it way more charm and character. So just don't overthink it. I do that sometimes, but I try not to. I try to just scribble and have fun and see what takes shape. One important note is to make sure that your paint is completely dry before you add your pen detail. And again, if you don't have waterproof pens, you will not want to add any more water or paint to this because the pen will bleed everywhere. And now I'm just adding some grass. I'm going to do some tall grass and some little tufts of grass here and there. And you can see definitely not overthinking the grass. I'm just scribbling it in there. And another thing I love about adding pen detail at the end is that, see, if I would have really drawn everything out ahead of time, I know I did a loose sketch, but if I had the pen detail in the beginning, I'd feel like I'd have to color in the lines exactly, and that would stress me out. So I just love scribbling at the end. And again, taking the pressure off, giving it a little whimsical feel, and just having fun with it. You can just be as loose or as detailed as you would like. Just continuing to add grass there along the water line. And I always just say, just keep going until it feels good to you. Sometimes I'm like, just need a little bit here, a little bit there, and try not to overwork it. But I think that's good. It gives an indication that we're in a grassy area. Bringing in my white Jelly Roll pen now, and just going to put some highlights here and there. I'm starting with the seats, and I'm also going to put some, just not necessarily highlights, but just some, in my mind, adding some interest. Decided to add some streaks of white in our water as well, just to indicate maybe a little movement there. And then I'm also going to put it in spots that aren't necessarily highlights, but just add contrast. And like I said, just adds a little bit of interest. And I'm going to start doing that here on the canoe itself on this side, which is kind of our darker side, but I think it adds a nice little pop of contrast, like I said. And then I was getting the feeling that my grass is just a little bit too dark, a little bit too flat. So I decided to add maybe little flowers. They might even be weeds, but little clusters of teeny white flowers here and there in the grass. And I won't make you watch me do that because I'm really just dotting, and I went a little bit crazy with the dots, and that might be a little bit boring here. So let me just speed you up through that. One of the fun things about painting scenes like this is that they don't have to be exact landscapes. It's more about the feeling, a peaceful lake scene, our little tent scene here, just a quiet moment out in nature. Wouldn't these two look cute side by side in a frame together, or gift them to somebody that maybe you took a camping trip with? Just a sweet little handmade keepsake. Whatever you decide to do with yours, I just hope you have fun painting them, and I hope you will join me for day 14. See you then.